Click on watch my other videos from start to finish. Click on my end screen and my thumbnail please. To think about leaving the north of England, he hated it there and flew over some holidays weren't far off. He wasn't sure he could wait that long. From the outside it was attractive enough. There was a quadrangle and an old courtyard with arches and an outside staircase, and next to it a chapel complete with stained glass and gargoyles. Some parts of the school were 300 years old and looked it, but in our recent times the government had managed to attract more money and had invested it in a new buildings. There was a theatre, a science block, and a barn science library on 2 floors. All of those had been built in the last 2 or 3 years. The school had its own tennis court, swimming pool and playing fields. It was situated a sort of basin in the countryside, with the road sloping steeply down from all directions. The first time Matt had seen it, he had thought it was being driven into university camp. It was only when he saw the boys aged 15 to 18 walking to class in their smart blue jackets and grey trousers that he realised that it was just a secondary school. It was certainly a world apart from St Edmunds. The comprehensive he had gone into Ipswich, but didn't know where to begin when he compared, and to everything was so neat and tidy. There was no smell of chips, no graffiti on flaking paintwork or goalposts. With the net hanging in rags, there were more than 1,000 books in the library, and all the computers in the DT block were state of the art. Even the uniforms made a huge difference. Putting it on for the first time, Matt felt as if something had been taken away from him. The jacket weighed down his shoulders and cut underneath his arms. The tie, with its green and grey stripes, was ridiculous. He didn't want to be a businessman, so why was he dressed up as one? When he looked in the mirror, it was as if he was seeing someone else. It wasn't Richard who had come up with the idea of sending him here. The Nexus, the mystery organisation that had taken over his life, had suggested it. Matt had done little work for 2 years. He was behind in every subject, sending him to a new school in the middle of the summer team would cause problems whenever he went, but a private school wouldn't ask too many questions and might be able to look after his particular needs. The Nexus was playing. It seemed like a good idea, but it had gone wrong almost from the start. Most of the teachers at Forest Hill were all right, but it was the one who really made themselves felt. It seemed to take Matt only days to make permanent enemies of Mr. King, who fought English, and Mr. O'Shaughnessy, who doubled as both French teacher and assistant headmaster. Both those men were in their 30s. but behaved as they behaved. If they were much older, on the first day Mr. King had given Matt a dressing down for chewing gum in the quad range. On the second, it had been Mr. O'Shagginess who had given him a high-pitched 10-minute lecture for an untucked shirt. After that, both of them seemed to have taken every opportunity to pick on him. If anything, it was the other boys at the school who were the real problem. Matt was a survivor. There had been some real bullies at St Edmunds, including one or two who seemed to take a real pleasure in hurting anyone who was small, hard-working, or just different from them. He had known it would take time to make friends in a new school, especially with boys, so unlike himself, but even so he had been unsurprised by now. How few of them had been prepared to give him a chance, of course. They all know each other. The further 14-year-olds at Forrestal were at the end of their second year, and they already made their friendships a pattern of life and been established. And as a newcomer, Matt knew that he was introducing worse than that he had come from a completely different world. A comprehensive school, and one that wasn't anywhere near Yorkshire. Very few of the boys were snobs, but they were still suspicious about him, and one boy in particular seemed determined to give him a hard time. His name was Gavin Taylor. He was in the most of the same class as Matt, and he controlled his entry life. Controlled his entry year. Gavin was physical big. He was slim with a turned-up nose and blonde, slightly greasy hair that hung down to his collar. He made a point of ensuring that his tie was never straight, slouching around with his hands in his pockets, and an attitude that warned everyone, staff or student, to keep their distance. There was an arrogance to him that Matt could sense 100 yards away. It was said that he was one of the richest boys in the school. His father had an internet. Subscribe to bell, share, like for you. Watch my videos from start to finish. Thank you. Click on my screen. Watch my videos.